Hello and good morning to everybody from New York City. I am Sarah Demi. I am the founder and CEO of Demi Colton. And on behalf of myself and the team, and along with our partner for this exclusive salon, Biotech TechGate Digital Partnering, it is my pleasure to welcome you to the 48th installment of the Demi Colton Virtual Salon Series. And as usual, we welcome everybody who's participated in the past back, and we welcome all of you who are joining us for the first time. You've heard me say this before. Demi Colton's mission is to convene healthcare industry leaders to catalyze change. We do this through our in-person events, including BioFuture, which concluded recently in New York City, our CEO summits, our virtual salon series, such as this one today, and Biotech Showcase, the premier investor conference, which will take place in San Francisco at the beginning of January. I think our friends at JPM may have a little issue with premier investor conference, but we like to say that in any case. And today's salon will give you a sneak preview of the type of forward-thinking sessions that will take place at Biotech Showcase. I encourage everyone to join us in San Francisco from January 13th to 15th. Now to today's salon. The topic is 2025 TechBio Investor and Technology Trends at Biotech Showcase during Healthcare Week. We are launching the TechBio Showcase for the first time at Biotech Showcase this year. Before we start, I'd like to introduce Joost Ringley. He's the COO and partner of Venture Valuation, as well as Biotech Gate Digital Partnering, located in Zurich, Switzerland. Who would like to say a few words? Joost.
Thank you very much, Sarah, for this kind introduction. And also from our side, a warm welcome to all the participants of this virtual salon and the Biotech Gate Digital Partnering. We are actually the company that owns and runs digital partnering, and we hope you enjoy the conference. We have again over 800 participants joining this conference. And as you know, there's still half a week ahead of us, so you can join sessions, request one-on-one partnering meeting, and so on. So last but not least, I would like to thank Sarah and Demi Colton for this great collaboration and providing another workshop with such an interesting topic. And yeah, saying this, I hand over to you again, Sarah, and looking forward to the workshop, of course.
Thank you so much, Joost. Thank you. We do really relish our partnership with you. So before we begin, some housekeeping notes. The salon will last 50 to 55 minutes, and it will be followed by a Q&A session. I think all of you will see that you can enter questions at the bottom of your screen. Also note that this salon is being recorded and will be available for on-demand viewing a little bit later on today on the Demi Colton YouTube channel. Now to today's salon. I am pleased to introduce our moderator. Lila Taylor is the CBO of Demi Colton, and I turn it over to Lila, who will introduce her panelists. Lila.
Thank you so much, Sarah, and thank you for that lovely introduction to both the topic and to our start today. It's also my pleasure to introduce today's virtual salon, as Sarah said, 2025 TechBio Investor and Technology Trends at Biotech Showcase during Healthcare Week. Before I ask our panelists to introduce themselves, I would like to provide a brief introduction to the TechBio Showcase track at Biotech Showcase and share why we chose this topic for today's virtual salon. This salon and the TechBio Showcase were created to highlight the transformative technology emerging from the increasingly blurred edges between technology and biopharma, and to explore the investment opportunities unique to TechBio. That said, let me give a quick overview of the TechBio Showcase track at the 17th Annual Biotech Showcase, a co-production of Demi Colton and the EBD Group. TechBio Showcase will feature companies at the intersection of technology and biology, working on technology-driven solutions that provide tools for biopharma and shape the future of human health. Featured TechBio categories will include drug discovery, deep tech, AI, diagnostics, medtech, patient interface, manufacturing, and robotics. The program will feature company presentations and panels that bring together CEOs, key opinion leaders, and investors in this exciting space. We hope everyone listening can join us. Now that I've set the stage, I would like to ask the panelists to introduce themselves. Maureen, if you could start us off.
Hi, everybody. I'm here with you from Paris. I invest globally in innovations focused on the central nervous system and mental health outcomes. I'm agnostic in terms of modalities or condition, and I prefer to focus both on prevention and intervention. I used to be a tech entrepreneur and started 4 businesses, mostly in Asia, and exited 2 of them.
Thank you so much for that. Jessica, if we could hear from you as well.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Joining you here from New York City, and I am a principal at Avant Bio. We are a early and growth stage investor focusing on tools, technologies, and services, enabling everything that is the next generation of technologies for life sciences, biopharma, and biotech. We focus on typically early stage companies and tend to be very active investors.
Thank you. Jan?
Yeah, good morning, everyone. I am dialing in from London, or near London anyway. So I say good morning. For me, it's good evening, and I guess for some of you, it will be some other time zone, but welcome, everyone. I'm a TechBio VC. Our fund operates out of Belgium, but as I said, I live in the UK. My co-founder is half American, half European. We invest in these style of companies all over Europe and in the US, typically very early, pre-seed, seed, Series A. Obviously been to the showcase several times, and several of our companies have been there as well, and happy to be here.
Great. Ala?
Hi, everyone. I'm Ala, joining from San Francisco Bay Area. I'm a co-founder and CEO of Selfie. Selfie is the company that innovates in cell therapy manufacturing space. And as you all know, access in cell therapies is limited by manufacturing, and manufacturing is one batch per one patient process that is currently very long and complex and costly. And Selfie offers the new class of manufacturing based on microfluidics, and we enable shifting from this long 20-day process to rapid automated 2-day workflows. And what it means significantly lower cost. It means quicker time to patients. It means we can manufacture these treatments in decentralized setting closer to where patients are treated. And ultimately, Selfie's goal is to enable treatments of hundreds of thousands of patients, and importantly, bring these modalities to the regions that traditionally have limited access to advanced therapies. Thank you so much. Happy to be here. Excited about the TechBio.
Great. And finally, David.
Hey, thank you very much, Laila. I'm David, or DSO for short. I'm the CEO and founder of Modality. We are based in San Francisco, and we create what is called self-driven neurological assessments of things like Parkinson's, depression, schizophrenia. We use a virtual guide, Tina, who interviews patients, and we can tell from what patients say and do in these conversations how they progress to disease and how treatments are working. And our customers are biotech companies, pharma companies. So we are a TechBio company. Natively.
Well, thank you, everyone. For our first question, I would like to ask our TechBio investors, what are the key qualities you look for in companies when you are considering investment? Jan, could you kick us off?
Yes, I can. So obviously, we're still VCs, right? So we will still look at exactly the same thing as other VCs do. The team is obviously always very, very important. Except in our case, the team needs to be good on the tech side, but also needs to be very good on the bio side. And that is not always an easy combination. Obviously, when I'm in San Francisco, yes, I meet a lot of people who've got a PhD in tech and a PhD in bio, and that's obviously very impressive, but you don't find those everywhere in the world. So often you have one of the two, or you have a combination of two founders together. But that's obviously a very important thing. After that, it's all the same stuff, technology, market, all that kind of stuff. But what is very important, I think, in TechBio for us is a certain level of optionality, because we are very early on, much more than obviously a drug developer or something, very early on working with partners and working with customers. And the world changes. Our world changes, their world changes. And we need to make sure that whatever we do invest in will be relevant, not just now when we've just invested, but also next year, in the next 5 years, whenever anything else happens. And then ultimately, obviously, we will always be considering what the exit opportunities are. I think that's it.
Well, let me go ahead and open this up to the floor. Jessica, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so I think kind of going off of Jan's last comment, something that's always really important to us is making sure that there's established product market fit. Sometimes we talk to founders and it's a very cool concept or idea, but really as investors, we want to make sure that it's not just a cool science project, and it's actually solving a need or a gap in the market that can be commercialized and continue to grow from a revenue perspective and be an investable business. So as interested as we are in cool science projects, it's not necessarily one that we can invest in as a fund. Also, I think something that Jan mentioned is always looking for leadership teams that are, again, really solving that gap in the market and have a vision for their growing company. And we're really looking for those N of 1 founders where they have a pulse and a handle on both the market, the technology, and they can also speak to the value that their company is going to bring to the market, and kind of wear that sales and marketing hat as well. And then finally, from a leadership perspective, again, as I mentioned, we tend to be very active investors, and we want to bring our expertise from the industry and the network that we have to add value to the portfolio companies. And so to that end, we're looking for that leadership team that also recognizes what they know and what they don't know, and are willing to work with us as investors and the rest of the board to make the company as successful as they possibly can be.
That's great. Maureen?
Right, so +1 to all of the above, but I think specifically in this space, we're also looking for, if we go a little bit under the hood of the evidence, right? We obviously want solid, evidence for all the innovations, and also how they are going to reach the right population of whatever they're trying to develop. But I think in some of the innovations that we see, we tend to see, if we dig a little bit, a problem in terms of representation. So we pay a lot of attention to that, meaning that we want to make sure that whatever goes in the trial, whatever is happening with the innovation that helps the trials, is actually going to help with having a good representation, meaning people who are trialed needs to be representative of the larger population that will benefit from the drug once it's approved, for example. And in our space, we find a lot of technologies that are not really representative. For example, we do a lot of work in the psychedelic space, and we find that in a clinical trial, there's not enough women representation or ethnicity representation. A lot of the AI models, whether they are audio-based or LLM, they might rely on exam papers as opposed to clinical data. Voice models may rely on male voices as opposed to female voices, which is very tricky when you try to sort of look for markers such as depression, which express differently in the voice for a woman or a man, and so on and so forth. So representation is something that we often neglect, and I think is important. The other thing we look for is frictionless user experience. So, solutions, innovations that will integrate very nicely and easily with the existing flow and working practices of CDMOs or pharma companies and labs. I personally like solutions that can be used across a continuum. So, whether it's drug discovery, regulatory, or commercial stage of a pharma or CRO, ecosystem. So, for example, we're looking at a neural biomarker company that helps, that could help the labs to improve the result and the efficacy of what they do at the screening, the selection, the trial optimization, the precision endpoints, all the way down to the post-market surveillance. So that's something that, that continuum is great. The other thing that's an obvious one we're looking for is solutions that offer a platform where you can serve a number of potential drugs candidate or a number of potential sites of applications. So that's, some of the things we're looking at. The other thing I think we're trying to make sure we invest in is solutions that allow for, yes, of course, greater efficiency. That's an obvious value for the users in our space of the TechBio, but also reduced cost. So, that allow solutions that are ultimately more affordable for the users. And trials are super expensive, right? And many fail. So this is a space that is ripe for improvement. And so we're looking for that as well. All of the above in terms of teams and so on.
Yeah. And possibly I could add a quick comment from the TechBio founder side, right? So what we are seeing investors pay attention to is also, do we bring value to the existing biotech portfolio companies? Do we offset some of the risk or expedite success of the biotech portfolio? And in cell therapy manufacturing space, right, manufacturing is such a big part of the successful drug development, that companies who can streamline manufacturing or expedite time to market for these drugs also become more attractive in investor target and investment target. And we are being asked, we are being introduced to multiple portfolio companies sometimes and have discussions with them. It's part of the diligence process. Yeah.
Yeah, also adding a little bit from our perspective, because we are not investors, but we have spoken to probably almost 1,000 investors over the course of the years, and of course it always depends on the stage of the investor and of the company. So Jessica, for example, expressed clear product market fit, while Jan, and full disclosure, Jan is an investor in Modality. We are one of their portfolio companies. He was, for example, with Novartis, looking at earlier stage companies where the product market fit may not be proven yet at that stage. Of course, it depends on where you stand. And to Marina's point, we look a lot at the opportunity to actually bring solutions to the larger populations, to assure that you can reach as many as possible people, to make it maximally accessible, to make the user experience in a way that it can be adopted not only, for example, for the sake of clinical trials, but then also later for clinical adoption. And as Ella said, there's multiple. When you talk about TechBio, there's of course multiple areas. We're not only talking about clinical trials. We're not only talking about manufacturing, but there's also, for example, drug discovery, artificial intelligence. Every single stage of the development and development for the medical space, biotech space, is part of the TechBio ecosystem.
We could keep talking for an hour about just this one topic, by the way, Laila, because maybe I should, but the continuum that was mentioned before is obviously the same as the optionality that I see. We are very early. We don't have the money to do the whole continuum in one go. You start one way or one place, and then you move to other ones. And with Modality, we're doing that. Some of the work is discovery, and then you go all the way up to healthcare if you want to. And then the thing about representation is another very good example of why this TechBio space is massively important. We are not doing just an incremental change here. We're not just doing something a little bit, more cheaply or faster, whatever it is. We fundamentally change the way people have to look at this stuff. The reason you have only, white men from one certain hospital in some clinical trials is just because the practicalities meant that was your option. Right now, the world is open. We are talking to each other here now from all over the world, and that you can do in a clinical trial setting, you can do it in an R&D setting, and that obviously opens up an awful lot of stuff. But back to you.
Yeah, I want to double click on this just very, very short, because what Marina said, you can save money, you can be more efficient. These things are great. But I believe, to Jan's point, there's a fundamental change that is coming, a fundamental disruption of the way drugs are developed. And so we can now answer, for example, with Modality, with these more precise and cleaner and more robust measurements, we can answer questions that drug companies, drug developers have that previously you couldn't answer. Like, for example, in the CNS space, it's so hard to tell whether a drug is working. We can now answer these questions in a much more fine-grained fashion, and thereby make a difference between go and no-go. Basically answer billion-dollar questions that previously were not answered. And so that's the significant value way beyond just efficiencies. I think we're encouraged to continue, Jan, to your point on that topic. If there's any other,
well, anybody else if you want, but yeah, I think the fundamental change of how this industry works is massive. The financial world has changed massively because of fintech. That's taken a long time because generally people who work there are on average probably a little bit older and a little bit less open-minded given all the risks involved and all stuff. Our space is obviously also very risk averse and conservative, but it will change much faster and it will have tremendous benefits for everyone. Absolutely.
And so what's the difference between investing in a biotech company and investing in a tech bio company? So from the investor perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Over to you guys.
Well, I mean, there are several ways to answer that question, but if we're answering it in terms of what are the advantages of investing in TechBio rather than biotech, I can think of a few. But first, there's I think greater ability to de-risk the drug discovery through different types of innovations. There is, you're potentially investing in a company that has a much faster time to market, talking about, the market fit. Some of these technology, whilst robust in their, efficacy and safety and evidence, some don't require FDA approval. So, that's another advantage, potentially. We have space to, invest in companies that are actually already have a trialed and tested, commercial success in the consumer space that can actually provide solutions for, into the labs. So we've invested in a couple of companies that do such thing, that come from a patient-centric or clinician-centric experience and are actually now used in clinical settings. In drug discovery and so there's a lot of opportunity and flexibility in this space that is essentially potentially less risky than biotech.
Yeah,
but
and to your
still
point,
high return. But
right.
Still high return.
It's interesting what you say about taking what's been used in commercial space, perhaps direct to consumer space, bringing it into the clinic. There's also this opportunity that when you run certain of these technologies and use them, for example, in clinical research, which is often the first step towards validating new technologies. So you often work first with academic centers. Then you have the validation data that you can present these technologies to, say, biotech customers that are then adopting them in their clinical programs. And this in turn provides then evidence and also traction and usage information, so that later at a larger scope, these technologies can be used in clinical care eventually, which has much more significant considerations attached. Things like integration with EMR systems, training of providers and so on. So in a way, the use in clinical research, in clinical trials, for example, is a great market segment to start that journey.
Yeah, now that we've solved the technical problem of a laptop crashing.
Thank you, everyone.
Let's
for
move.
your questions.
Yeah. So Lila, one question I have for you and for everybody else, since we are launching the TechBio Showcase, what companies should we apply, invite to be a part of it? It's not a space that we focused on in the past, but it's a new and exciting, that fuzzy line between biotech and technology. Who are they? And perhaps, all of you can answer that. Jan, Jessica, Ala, David, and Maureen, who you're investing in. Who should we be looking for and encouraging to be at Biotech Showcase and the TechBio Showcase?
I think to build on my earlier point, I think you should look at companies that are already made their proof in other spaces, but can absolutely add value to the TechBio space. So, for example, there's a company we've invested in, which is called Bexon, and they do a subcutaneous pump, that to put on the body that can deliver hundreds of drugs at home. And because it avoids the gut, it offers a lower risk profiles and also better dosing control. So it potentially improves the whole efficacy of drug development. And so that can be a delivery mechanism in clinical trial setting. Another example is Muse, which is a headband you put on the forehead, and it tracks your brain waves and sleep. And it's a consumer application today. You can buy it, directly on their website. But it's also widely used in clinical setting to support EEG data collection, which, in the CNS space is super important. So, that's the first thought, and then the other one I leave my colleagues to comment further, but the other space that I think is pretty important is, obviously AI is, the elephant in the room, and I'm sure we'll talk about it, but anyone that helps with, the real-time data monitoring or the screening process, or, all of those things that fundamentally help address problem before they impact the trial's results is pretty important. And yeah, I think for me, the big one is anyone who does markers. Right, whether they're neuromarkers, biomarkers, digital markers, all of that world, which can be, facilitated through wearables or apps, or on your phone or at home, basically, to also follow the patients outside of the clinical setting. That I think are super important. And again, you can find a lot of these companies that do this tech, but perhaps are not native to the TechBio space like DSO is. But so I think that's another space perhaps to look.
That's great. That's great, Maureen. I think, Jan, you took yourself off mute so that you could jump in here too, right?
Well, I mean, fundamentally, let's be honest, the clinical trial or developing any molecule going into a patient is a 10-year process and costs several billion. And the reason it takes that long and costs that much is because an awful lot of stuff goes wrong for essentially the wrong reasons, right? You try the wrong thing, you try it too early, whatever it is. All the TechBio stuff that we do will improve that. And there's an awful lot of opportunity for that. If you imagine, going to buy, a bottle of water from a shop and think about how many things could have gone wrong and don't no longer go wrong. We just walk to the shop, pay for it, and come back, and we've got a bottle of water. If you would do the same efficiency to developing a drug, i.e. getting all the mistakes out very early on, getting all the statistics right, getting all the production stuff right, like Ala was saying, and that is this space, basically. It's no longer just from academia inventing a molecule or whatever and trying to bring it eventually in 10 years' time via a big pharma budget to the market. Is doing a lot more stuff. And that involves everything with a lot more data, obviously AI, which means capturing more data, storing more data, finding more data, even old data. Don't forget, old data is going to be the scarce resource of the future. Everybody says data is the scarce resource of today, which it obviously is. We will capture as much as we can. If you have old data, that will be very valuable as well, obviously, as well. Stuff like that. What else did I write?
You're talking about changing the paradigm of investing in biotech, basically.
I
If you
think
start removing the obstacles and the fault lines and everything like that, you change the paradigm.
the smart investors, and not just investors, the smart pharma people who run such a 10-year, $2 billion program are the ones who are talking to people like us around here now.
Right.
I can do this in 5 years, or I can do, whatever it is cheaper and whatever else is. Absolutely. Yeah.
It's funny that Sarah says you're changing paradigm. There is, of course, this arch-ventured, very well-funded company that uses artificial intelligence to actually attack the major inefficiencies in clinical trials, which is called Paradigm. That's one of the examples. Of course, artificial intelligence is one which is very top of mind for me specifically. There's examples like, for example, Unlearn out of San Francisco, who are building these digital twins that you can use in clinical trials, so you don't have to have as many placebo patients anymore, and can perhaps predict with equal statistical power the trajectory and effect of the drugs. There's Mendel AI out of San Jose. That's a previous colleague of mine who founded that company, and they are looking at EMR records and medical imaging to predict who is best suited for the inclusion in clinical trials. Also, you should probably look at biotech companies themselves, some of which are using TechBio as part of their secret sauce, part of their platform. Like, for example, one of our customers is Virginomics out of South San Francisco, and they have a proprietary platform that came out of Stanford, a proprietary platform to actually identify the most optimal molecule to put forward out of hundreds of thousands, millions of molecule candidates. What is the one that is most likely safest and most efficacious to actually bring forward into clinical trials? So just to give a few examples.
Yeah, so Ala, I know, thank you so much for that, DSO, but Ala, you've been chomping at the bit to jump in here.
Yeah, I'll add a bit from cell therapy manufacturing space, right? So unless we manufacture cell therapies cost effectively and at scale, they will not get to patients. And it's still a significant roadblock, right? So technologies that offer scalability, that offer automation, really important. In our space, also technologies that provide rapid quality control, right? So in current cell therapies, we spend 2-3 weeks manufacturing treatment, and then we spend another 10 days doing quality control to make sure they are safe and potent. And there are multiple companies that right now working on this so-called rapid release tests that could be implemented and coupled with the manufacturing technologies. So again, and various automation startups as well.
Right, wonderful, thank you. And Jessica, to you now. Daniela started this whole thing, so let's.
Yeah, absolutely. So to have a couple of comments from Jan and Ala and DSO as well. So maybe working backwards, what Ala just mentioned about automating QC is certainly a trend that we're seeing, and that really does fall under this TechBio umbrella. So for instance, there's a company that we were recently communicating with called Fizzle that's looking to automate various kinds of QC technologies and products. So anything from air particle counters to things that would be, all of the typical devices that would be found in a QC lab, so that somebody doesn't actually have to physically enter clean room spaces and be manually handling these highly sensitive spaces and devices. And so you could really not only improve the outcomes and results, but also hasten the time that it takes to go through QC products. And that's all being done through automation, robotics, and AI. So that's kind of just one example of automating QC, but we're seeing it from a couple of different lenses as well. DSO also mentioned, AI for image analysis. So one of our recent investments, a company called Path Presenter, is applying AI technologies to improve digital pathology. So not to necessarily go down a rabbit hole, but I'm sure everybody has had negative or at least unhappy experiences with getting biopsies taken or know somebody who has. And so that's an experience or a process that's very, very antiquated. And Path Presenter has really looked to bring this into a next generation of digitizing pathologies and leveraging AI to improve outcomes and time for analyzing biopsy samples, and also bringing that through kind of the full end-to-end process from patient touching experiences through the clinicians and the pathologists. And that underlying that foundation of that software technology is in fact AI. And then finally, one other example, wanted to comment from some of Jan's commentary about kind of AI and data. So we recently started talking to a company, and there are many in this field, but for example, companies that are dealing with integrating various data sources for drug discovery applications and integrating AI to not only improve unstructured data and combining it into a single platform, including electronic lab notebooks, patient data, data from PubMed and analyzing papers and bringing that all into a single structure so that drug discovery applications can leverage all of that different sort of data, as well as in-house R&D to hasten, again, the drug discovery and drug development process. So, I think we could again spend another hour talking about all of the different applications for TechBio, specifically within the life sciences space. We haven't even really touched on how TechBio can also kind of expand into adjunct areas from agriculture. We didn't talk about synthetic biology. We didn't talk about food or cosmetics. And really all of these applications can expand into these kind of sub-industries or related industries, as well as from drug discovery, drug development, manufacturing, clinical applications, patient-touching applications. And so I think this is just starting to get a flavor of just how far TechBio can go. And it's really exciting to be, investing and meeting companies across these various applications and industries, and really proud to be supporting the entrepreneurs who are trying to bring these new technologies to market.
Wonderful. Lila?
Yes, that is fantastic. And I think Jessica's right. We have definitely topics for a whole series of salons because we can't cover everything today. And I look forward to that. I do have a question, and this is for our CEOs, but please everyone jump in. Now, Ala and David, you're from very different but still important parts of TechBio. What would be the advice that you would give to entrepreneurs, new CEOs, academics doing spin-outs to be successful in this space? What kind of lessons learned?
Well, I'm happy to start. So as the company that innovates, again, in cell therapy manufacturing space, what we've learned is that having a technology that solves significant challenge is not enough. And you also need partnerships. And of course, obvious answer that everyone will say, of course, you need partnerships with Pharma Biotech Translational Center, right? Because that's how you validate your product. That's how you establish your market fit. But what is less obvious is you also in our space, that is to Jan's point, is developing so fast. You also need partnerships with upstream and downstream technologies and automators to demonstrate how all pieces work together. And there are several reasons for that. One, you can demonstrate more clearly, in a more quantifiable manner, what the value proposition is to pharmaceutical companies. And you can achieve significantly better outcome if you have all the best-in-class technologies coming together than innovating in just one piece, right? Secondly, we do need to move the industry towards standardization eventually, right? And working together with the, again, innovators and key opinion leaders, we can help guide the industry to those next generation standardized processes. So collaborations is a big one, and something we've learned, something I've been told many, many times, but of course had to learn it hard way, was it's so important to invest in relationships outside the group that adopted your core your technology in pharma, right? So pharma has different teams, and you can have everyone on your team you work with can be a champion, but then, right, pharma has strategy review, and all of a sudden your champions are somewhere else, and you spend significant time rebuilding relationships, right? So spending time building relationships with decision makers, being asking to be introduced to another groups that you can bring value to, is so important. And maybe one more lessons learned, and I'll give it to you, David. So in our space, again, where manufacturing process is so complex and have so many moving pieces, it's all about partnerships approach to sales, right? We are not selling something off the shelf here that people can just click and buy. So it's really consultative approach, right? You really need to understand, spend time with the customer, understanding what challenges they have, and work with them to achieve desired outcomes and support them through the process optimization process and as they move to clinical trials. And again, lesson learned the hard way. We had several early adopters. We placed technology in their hands. They achieved really good results. Everyone was happy. We launched the product. We went to the market. And what we've learned is that each customer, even with the same application, has such a unique workflow. They're doing something different with their reagents, with the way they handle cells, upstream, downstream, even with the same exact application. Something material that goes in your device is completely different from customer to customer, right? So it was a big learning, and what we had to do is we had to choose several beachhead applications that are critical for this industry, and we had to become experts basically in the whole workflow end to end. So now we can help customer to achieve the optimum result every time we go to the customer site. And as a side effect of this, we also developed several best-in-class workflows of our own that are proprietary and that we offer for customers to adopt. And one of the large pharmas recently adopted our workflow. So definitely lessons learned deploying technology into this space.
Yeah, Alla, it's really interesting because I believe many of us founders, and we've been talking to each other for a long time, are going through a similar experience. I want to take a little bit more high level. We talk about TechBio as compared to biotech here. A biotech is something that's much more established, right? It's been around for decades, and the processes are clear. So you say you develop a small molecule, and then you go through early discovery and IND, and then clinical trials and manufacturing, and everything is kind of clear. What are the steps? What are the things? What are the way you bring these things to market? Also, there's partnerships with big pharma. Eventually, they run the phase 3 study and then bring it to market and license it out in. So those sorts of things are clear. The business model is clear. Product market fit is clear. So that's very different in TechBio, because in TechBio, this is something very new, a new breed of a new domain of technology. And here we have this problem, which is that the founders, usually Alla, myself, and others, they're usually tech founders, right? We are scientists often, like a PhD type of people who come from, say, academic labs. They have a really good idea of how we can do things. But we don't know much about market adoption, and specifically in a new breed of technology. How can we know whether people will pay for this? But people actually need this truly. And so that's why in TechBio and in health tech in general, with these new types of technologies, it is so important to talk to your potential customers early on, right? The Lean Launchpad, the NSFI Core is a program, for example, that supports this, where you are forced to call 100 customer prospects, even before you build your minimally viable product, even before you say incorporate the company, you are supposed to do this already. So you have a sense of where you're headed. And so then, Alla, to your point, you can define your beachhead early on, and you can define, what is exactly the full product that the customer can then adopt, so that you don't have to go through this trial and error and spend so much time and so much money and so much effort in going into directions that at the end of the day are not meaningful. And so that is a lesson that that we learned, luckily we had good help along the way. So we didn't do a lot of the mistakes, but we did some. And so that's definitely some recommendation for, I think, TechBio founders specifically, because it is not clear exactly what the market segment is, how people are going to pay for this, how much they're going to pay for this, and these type of fundamental questions.
Yeah. Yeah, it all ties down to Jan's early comment. You really need flexibility, and you need flexibility in your technology, but also you need flexibility in the way you approach your going to market, right? And being ready to respond to the learnings you have. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. That was a great insight. And I'd also like to ask a question that I'm hearing a lot when I'm speaking to people about TechBio. And that is, what is the advantage of investing in a TechBio company as opposed to a more traditional company developing a smaller or large molecule?
Mhm.
What are the advantages of this exciting new space?
We spoke a little bit about it when your computer crashed.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, we did a bit, yeah. But it's, I mean, the stuff's still true, right? If you invest in a proper biotech company, you're off on a 10-year trajectory, and then you will find out at the end, more or less, where you are. Whereas in our case, very often you know a lot sooner whether you're doing something right or not. You can also start sometimes a little bit as a service business and then become a product business later and so on. We've got a lot more, yeah, like I said, optionality earlier. Generally, you need less money, obviously. You don't need like 100 million round, because what would you spend it on? The reason you have 100 million round in biotech is because obviously all these service providers are there that you need to go through to do that old-fashioned process, which costs a lot of money. Obviously, we don't have that. Yeah, and then generally, yeah, exit related stuff, because these companies are simpler, so to speak, or smaller generally a little bit, you wouldn't go for an IPO necessarily, and M&A is obviously into a traditional tech company would make a lot of sense in a lot of cases.
And I could add maybe a comment, and at least my perception is the pool of acquirers might be broader for TechBio companies, right? So we do have strategic investors who build lab equipment tools. We do have contract manufacturers who offer solution to pharma, and TechBio companies can bring value to the existing portfolio of both of those classes of potential acquirers, right? And if technology is really, really differentiated, possibly even pharma can be someone who would want to acquire technology.
Yeah, it goes on, specifically for companies that are big in AI, for example. There's even the big tech companies, even the Googles, the Apples, and Amazons of the world that are really spending a lot of interest and money in tech space around health tech. Maybe not so much in contract manufacturing or specific manufacturing, but in our space, yes. So that's an area of exit. Another is, we see a lot of PE consolidation, private equity consolidation happening also in our space. So most of potential acquisition interest in our area is actually from companies that are trying to place and buy out companies like ours, and then make them more efficient and more profitable. Right. IPOs, I think, even in biotech space, well, it's more common, but 1% of VC-backed companies go IPO, I believe.
Yeah, and I think another way to think about that as well is also kind of going back to the prior question that DSO and Ala both commented on, is kind of a nuance of this TechBio is, and another way to think about it is the consolidation of the market. So things that used to be kind of, as Ala was saying, disparate from upstream or downstream applications or across submarkets is increasingly overlapping. And I think that is also true back to DSO's recent comment of things that used to be maybe only applicable or thought of being acquired for Google or Apple. Now there's companies like NVIDIA and Amazon that are increasingly focused on pharma, biotech, life sciences. And so this Venn diagram of customers and acquirers is kind of getting ever larger as the foundational technology is really blurring the lines between what was once entirely distinct industries, teams, markets, et cetera. And so I think that's a real undercurrent of how we're approaching TechBio. And Lila, to your question about what is so attractive about TechBio versus a traditional biotech investment from a small molecule, entirely different opportunity set there.
So I see Sarah is back on screen, and that means that
And your
moving.
computer did not crash to bring me on.
Not. How ironic that on a TechBio panel that my computer would give out. But Sarah is going to be leading us in our question and answer period.
Okay, so we do have a few questions that have come in. Let me just start reading some of them off for you. Do you see value in a startup company combining multi-omics and digital twins to identify new therapeutic targets in order to reduce the time and cost of drug development?
Yes.
Yes, says yes, and he's willing to
Yes.
invest right now, right?
Yes, of course. Yeah.
There are a few, but yes,
Yeah.
that's what we need. I mean,
Okay, so yes, it is. What do you consider to be the limitations and challenges of AI in preclinical drug discovery and development? I think we've kind of addressed that.
Yeah, we touched on the bias, the hallucination, things of that nature.
Yeah.
Yeah.
the bias, I think, is a big one. And that's where, when I mentioned old data, that helps. Like when you have data like from an unsuspected era and you use that now and it still works, then you know you've got something. Whereas if you have data that you've found specifically for doing your discovery now, you're never quite sure what it is. But yeah, so bias is definitely the big one there. Yeah.
But using AI to actually read through a number of different sources is where I think we have less risks, essentially.
How do you eliminate the bias?
That's the skill of the, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's a question for the AI guys, and there are, but I would say this, which is that, and we've invested Noetic and myself, Noetic Fund, in companies where we felt the bias was, de-risked substantially because they've trained their model on very, very vertically driven set of data. So, you train your model on a specific cohort of patient, or you train your model on a particular condition. And for that condition, you look at, EHR, you look at digital, you look at biomarkers, you look at, all sorts of things. But basically, you have a much more narrow sort of field of expertise where basically the machine learns, and you try, and you also, you want to integrate. It's all about the input of the data that goes into the model, right? So you want to, for example, Gemini, which a lot of people have, waxed lyrical about, is mostly trained on, exam data. And that's not, we're missing huge pieces of information from the clinical, the physicians, even, the patients, but that's trickier because of, GDPR and other privacy reasons. But there are ways to, if you think about the bias from the onset, if that's what you're looking for, and you want to make sure that, you're going to limit that risk, you're going to be able to do it. But you just have to, it's by design. You have to know that either as an investor, that's what you want to sort of be comfortable about, or you're looking for, companies that have genuinely started with that issue at the, forefront of what they build.
Yeah, I know, Jessica. Sorry, Jan.
Yeah, just very briefly on what Marina was saying in terms of also the data that you are using in order to establish these models. Of course, the artificial intelligence technology that you have today can sift through as much data as you want. So the amount of data is not a problem. It's actually a virtue. Now the question is where do you get that data that is representative of the general population? And there's of course things that are available or that can be made available. Like for example, I'm right now at the largest ALS conference in the world, the MNDA, and there is a collaboration, for example, with one of our partners with the Medicare system, which provides medical record, historic medical record data from 50 million patients, U.S. patients, that are being used actually for this specific method to identify,
Who
for
collected
example,
that data? Who collected that data? 50
that's through a
million.
partnership with Accenture. So there's some sort of HIPAA compliant data exchange, that anonymized data exchange that is happening in order to exactly answer very fundamental questions that are then representative. Or our own partnership with the Veterans Administration is another example. So there's 9 million patients that are currently active that are fully represented in the medical record systems of the Veterans Administration. And we are able to actually go and identify very specific cohorts of choice to really represent a certain. There's of course another bias at the VA, which is, for example, that there's not that many women, and the demographics are the economic situation is a little bit different from the general population of the U.S. But you have ways to then address this specific problem through, of course, acquiring and working with the specific data sets that remove that bias or change it for the better.
Standardization of collection of data as well, right?
That's true. Yeah, that's a little bit more difficult, of course. If you do things like Modality, for example, you want to have audio video recordings of individuals, there's actually really no other way than to actually deploy this technology and collect from as many as possible people. We have collected from 80,000 patients across the US and internationally to really establish a really representative set of performances that we can train on.
Right. Anybody else want to comment on that? Moving on then. One question is, and I'm sure you can react to this clearly, are investors saturated with AI? Somebody's exhausted from this. How do we stand out from the crowd? Yeah, and you took yourself off mute, so you can jump in.
Well, obviously we're not tired of AI. What we are tired of is pitches that basically just give me buzzwords without there actually being any substance, or at least not well thought through substance that has been checked with people in the industry and stuff. So there's quite a few of those, but AI still has a lot of space to run. But it will always come down to the data, like we said, old data, a lot of data, cheaper data, much more diverse data. And when I say much more diverse, we mean literally much more diverse. It's not like enough for people who can make it to the hospital. No. Everyone, right? Even the people who can't make it to the hospital, even people who aren't even in the US or in whichever other country. So yeah, because that data element is much more important than the actual AI bit. These days, anyone can do AI. It's just, the model around it is more important.
Yeah,
Hey, Jessica.
and I think we're definitely not, and soon enough, we won't even, it will be such a, daily thing for us as investors and us as humans that, it's not going to be featuring any longer. But what still remains now and will remain for a long, long time is when you invest in a company, you look at the technology, whatever that technology is or that innovation is, and you just simply ask yourself, what does it do for the benefit of whom? Right? And if the company is not able to articulate that, but just get jumpy and excited about, I'm doing AI. Oh, did I tell you I'm doing AI? And it's like, well, yes, I've heard that, but who are you servicing and how? And what are you doing for them?
Okay, so that gets to how to stand out, right?
Yeah, it's just the basic old questions of, yes, exciting technology, but who does it benefit?
Right.
Yeah.
Jessica, did you want to?
Absolutely. I was going to say something very similar. Just not that a company's not using AI and throwing buzzwords around for the sake of leveraging AI in a company. There really has to be a clear product market fit, filling that gap in the market, and AI is adding value to whatever it is that market need and a company is trying to provide. I think the other thing from our personal team's perspective is we recognize that we are not AI experts. We're trying to drink from the fire hose, just like many of you out there. And so knowing that we're not experts in AI, we're treading lightly and trying to educate ourselves as quickly as possible, alongside assessing the technology and the company with all of the other typical levers that we typically look for. But trying to, when you see a company that claims that they're the next generation of drug discovery leveraging AI, not highly differentiated from the companies coming into our inboxes. So I would just second everything that Maureen said.
Wonderful. Okay, our next question is a little complicated, but I think we can get to it pretty quickly. The writer writes, I hear TechBio investors are looking for executive teams having multi-fluent backgrounds. In other words, they understand science, AI, business, strategy, leadership. And I would think that that's not only in TechBio, that's elsewhere, if I'm correct. How do you value this multi-fluency and as it trickles down into the organization in terms of hiring, motivating, and retaining?
Well, that's not a TechBio only question.
Yeah, I know. I'm reading
Yeah.
it. You know, and what would you advise CEOs on multi-fluency in this space? I mean, it's
I'm
the
not
same
sure.
as,
I mean, you know, I might be, you know, not quite cancelled, but certainly not, you know, necessarily the same opinion as my colleagues today. But I'm not necessarily looking for that in a team. I'm not necessarily looking for that fluency. I think teams are teams, right? So they're a combination of talent, skills, you know, experience, approaches to how they solve the problems they face. And I think I'm actually more interested in teams that can say, this is the gap we have. We are not, you know, polyglots. We are not, you know, AI and commercial, or, you know, scientific and, you know, experimental. So I'd much rather look at, you know, people who are able to say, this is what we're good at, this is what we're missing, and by the way, can you help us? Building
yeah,
that
that's
team.
reasonable advice that we would give or provide to other, you know, biotech companies, for instance. Yeah.
Or any company.
So,
it's a bit of
another question is, Jan, did you want to say something? Sorry.
So I wanted to say it's a company culture thing in the end, because you want to make sure that you don't end up with silos where the tech guys are on one side and the bio guys are on the other side. You need to obviously constantly integrate daily and make sure that both of you understand who you're working for, ultimately the patient, and then along the way, obviously, for the people who are in between you and the patient. Anyway.
Yeah, you have to have a well-functioning company, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That's what it boils down to.
Yeah.
Another question is, and you don't have to answer this right away, somebody wants to know if they can have all your email addresses so they can reach out to you. Okay, you don't have to answer that right now. And our last question is, what advances in fintech, the private marketplace, do you see a difference evolving, different evolving calculus on exit monetization? And this writer puts in, mentions Forge, Hive et al. SpaceX, Anthropic have yielded enterprise value ROI for investors without IPO or buyout. A little complicated.
Yeah, basically the question of, you know, if you don't have an exit for some time, what are the other options to actually produce a return, right, for the investors through secondaries or other potential ways? Is that what you're seeing, the investors, what you're seeing happening?
I don't know. I'm European, so I'll wait for the Californians to do something differently, and then I'll follow you.
I think DSO is also a bit European.
Yeah. Well,
I think one other way to think about
this. Go ahead, Jessica.
I was just going to say, I think we kind of touched on this a little bit earlier in the facet of TechBio is not just attracting the traditional acquirers of these companies. And so if you think about that from all of the different ways that you could then increase your enterprise value and your ROI in terms of not only the exit opportunity and the exit value, but the size of your customer base, the what you can charge for the product that you're providing. All of those things are being magnified and multiplied when you expand across these various industries and customer segments. And so I'm not sure if this is quite the question, but it is certainly a potential and positive outcome of a TechBio company is that you're more multifaceted and providing more value to multiple people than maybe traditional, pharma tools or even a biotech.
Okay, thank you. We do have one last question, and maybe this is a good thing for us to end on. And Lila, maybe you can jump in here too. What is the difference in your definition, our definition, between TechBio and biotech? Is TechBio primarily software versus biotech being more focused on large and small molecules?
That's a really good question, Sarah. I think that we did launch TechBio track at our BioFuture conference in October, and we thought a lot about this. And I think speaking to some key opinion leaders and researching this, that TechBio is where technology and data intimately touches biopharma. So that can be what Ala's doing, it can be what David's doing, it can be robotics. It is becoming an increasingly fuzzy line, and I take that from Sarah. I have to give credit to Sarah for that. Mm-hmm. So that is my definition, but I'm sure the audience would love to hear what the panel's definition is.
Yeah, I think you also came up with the definition of where machines meet flesh and blood.
Yes, machines and data meet.
That was the number. Yeah. So Ala, you're eager to jump in.
Yeah, when machines meet blood is a perfect definition for what we are doing, right? We're using microfluidics to apply mechanical forces to cells. So engineering meets science, and we are investing more and more in data to track how different cells of different patients are different and how we can optimize for the better outcomes in manufacturing. So this is perfect, Lila. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, right.
Yeah, I would add to this because we were struggling with that same question. What sort of company are we? Are we AI company? Are we deep tech company? Are we digital health company? What is it? And now finally we have that term, right, which really nicely describes TechBio is in my interpretation. When I'm listening to all what you're saying, my interpretation, deep tech applied to the biotech space, like in order to support the biotech space. So any component of biotech, whether it is early stage drug discovery, whether it's clinical trials, whether it's manufacturing, anywhere where deep technology is supporting these processes, that's what TechBio is.
Right.
Yeah, another way to do it in layman terms, it might be, TechBio helps the company that will bring drug to patients, right? So it's TechBio is coming at that earlier stage before it reached patient, before it's commercialized by the biotech and pharma companies. But it's a pretty important part of the equation.
I'm so excited. Yeah, I'm so excited by this time. I'm sorry to cut you off like that, Marie. And I just think the integration of TechBio with biotech is going to really lead to a dramatic evolution in drug development, therapeutic development. It's a long road, but I think it's going to lead to it. Yeah, and you wanted to add something?
Well, it's a long road, but it'll be a fast road. So yes, indeed, it is everything we know from technology, like we know it in our daily lives, and that's from telecoms to tablets to machinery to software, all of that applied in a supplier relationship to that long and slow process, but not incrementally, radically, right? So not like we're going to make your, whatever, your computer cables a little bit stronger or whatever. That's a detail, right? We don't want to talk about that. This is literally changing, 10 years from now, you will have a production problem. Let's deal with it now, that kind of stuff, because we can, and we can do all that kind of stuff. Yeah, and that is what it is. And it's certainly not only software, and it's absolutely certainly not only AI. There's a lot of data capture stuff in there. There's a lot of machinery in there. There's, whatever. It's much wider than that.
Right. Okay, two more. One is a question, and I think this is a fairly quick one to answer. Will AI advancements in other industries help drive biotech, good or bad? I think the answer is yes.
Well, obviously, yeah, the fundamental models like large language models, for example, which were developed for the general population, they are being used everywhere. That was true for decades, of course. Deep learning has been around for a long time. Machine learning has been around for 30 years. Yes, we learn from all these other verticals and apply it to TechBio.
Okay, and the very last question, thank you so much, DSO. For software, there is hardware, so couldn't there be an aspect of TechBio that includes hardware or medical devices? I think the answer is a resounding yes.
Of course, yeah.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And they already exist, and we've invested in some of them. And wearables is a big part. Starters, device that actually fit nicely on the body of the people who are trialed. So and by the way, machinery, hardware that can be in the labs and in the homes. That's another big advancement also, and it's to Jan's point. It's improvement in magnitudes of years reduced in a clinical trial, not just minutes.
Yeah.
Wow, thank you.
Californian thing to think that tech is basically software. I mean, all the tech that we're looking at has been made in China and consists also of a piece of kit. So there's at least half of our companies are obviously kit companies, stuff. Yep.
Okay, I think we're kind of at the end of our time. We have about 3 minutes left. Lila, do you, I think what we'd like to do is have everybody, just make a closing comment, and I'll turn it over to Lila to do the final closing comment. So Jan, we're starting with you.
Starting with me. Well, you have no idea how happy I am to hear this track coming to life in your showcase, because we as investors have been in what we call this space, which we also didn't really have a name for, because people always ask, what do you do? I'm like, well, I don't do therapeutics, I don't do medtech, I don't do healthcare. What do you do? I mean, now I can just say it's TechBio. Listen.
Yeah, Lila came up with the term. So
very good. I mean, the name's been around, but it's never been given like the same clamor that it needs to have, and it honestly needs it. We're talking orders of magnitude here, so it's a big space. So I'm very happy for that. Good.
Right. Thank you, Jessica. You're next on my screen.
Yeah, absolutely. I think just seconding what Jan said about being so excited and grateful to have the opportunity to invest in these, paradigm shifting next generation technologies. It's a really fantastic space. I think, it's really amazing to be in a position where sometimes you're meeting a company and it's such a novel idea and one that will make such a big impact. And getting the opportunity to help invest in that company or bring that company to life is really fantastic. So thank you to Lila and Sarah Jane for bringing the attention to this space that it deserves, and looking forward to continuing to participate in this industry.
Wonderful. Thank you, Jessica. Ala, you're next. Then Maureen, then DSO, then Lila.
I love that you guys are driving the industry to define the space and to find a place for the companies like ours. And I hope this term will continue to spread through investor and startup community, and even for investors, right? When we as a founders, when we're looking for which investors are the best fit, they always say biotech, and who knows what that means? Is it a therapeutic? Is it a tool? Is it another modality? So I'm really excited about this. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Ala. Maureen?
Well, I'm very glad to have been part of this panel today. I came at it from a slightly left field way, because I don't belong to that TechBio space, but what I'm always excited about is to see that we are all working towards one same outcome, which is, to bring more better drugs, more precision drugs to the people who need it. For my focus is very much mental health outcomes. So, we've seen already tremendous impact from the improvement of what we now call TechBio into servicing that goal of bringing, better innovation, better therapies to, mentally ill population. So I'm super excited about that. But I'm also excited about the fact that we can have broad conversation about, there is a space, it's called TechBio, there is biotech, there is everything else and everything in between. And that's what I'm always excited about. So if you want to talk about, how we can, innovate more within this space that will allow us to bring better treatment to the mentally ill population, ping me.
Wonderful. Thank you, Maureen. DSO, last word, then we go over to Lila. And we've got literally 40 seconds, and you need to put yourself off mute so we can hear you.
Yeah, it's a little bit like a Back to the Future moment. I think when you look a few decades back when biotech was introduced, it was a new thing, and it turned out to be the big breakthrough, right? Everybody's now talking about biotech and the impact it has on patients. We are going through the same thing with TechBio. It's undoubtedly so. And to Maureen's point, we can change the lives of patients with this technology in a way that is so amazingly disruptive and so helpful for individual patients that this is really the driver and the mission that we're on.
Perfect. Thank you, DSO. Lila, you started this whole thing, so you have the last word.
I just want to say that it has been a magnificent experience to have this panel come out and help define the space of TechBio and help increase awareness and talk about some very important considerations leading up to the TechBio Showcase at Biotech Showcase and beyond. So in closing, I just want to thank everyone who's joined us today and the panel and Sarah Jane, and please come to Biotech Showcase and TechBio Showcase.
Absolutely. Thank you, Lila. As I mentioned earlier, this session has been recorded. It will be posted on our website, on the Demi Colton YouTube site later today for anybody who wants to hear it or share it with anybody else. And as Lila said, I underscore, join us at Biotech Showcase for TechBio Showcase. Thank you all.